The Houston Astros continue to keep rolling early this season, even without their best player Yordan Alvarez on the roster. The Texas Rangers continue to have high drama in every single game, no thanks to the offense. Adolis Garcia with a big 3-run homer late in extra innings, still not enough to get this offense over the hump for Texas. Pitching staff right there at the best in the league as far as avoiding runs. We'll see if they add some bats before the deadline because they've made it clear they want to add and be a contender at this deadline. The Torpedoes, everything else be damned, they're going full steam ahead no matter where they ultimately end up around the All-Star break. That and much, much more ahead next here at The Upside. And welcome into the MLB Hot Stove Daily here at the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe here at the bottom of the video. That thumbs up goes a long way to helping us out. See, we already have one in the chat tonight, so if you guys want to let us know where you're watching from, what team you're kind of watching here at the deadline as well, for players that you might see move, those kinds of things, let us know in the chat as well. Follow us on X at UpsideUsIn and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network as well, to be notified when we do go live. Welcome in, Rafe. Appreciate you joining us. Mark, welcome back. Not saying too long, going to go to bed soon. Say hi. Everything's going good, yes. A few weeks for trade, school, wish me luck. Good luck, my friend. Good luck, Mark. When do you think Texas will finally sell? They're not going to. I thought this recent stretch of bad play might push them towards the idea of selling here at the deadline. And I think if they ended up going on, say, like a 10-game losing streak going into the All-Star break, I still think that could readjust everything. But they're not going to do that. This pitching staff has been, let me hear you guys say this with me, the best pitching staff in baseball. That's right. The Houston Astros are number 2 as far as avoiding runs. They've allowed 304. The Texas Rangers at this point have allowed 302. Tells you just how good the pitching has been in the AL West. And even without their offense really clicking for either team, the Rangers having issues getting guys to produce, period. So many players got off to slow starts. For the Astros, it was also the slow start, but they've certainly come out of it to a certain extent. But now they're without some key cogs in that lineup, with Pena going down due to a rib fracture as well. Yordan Alvarez was supposedly getting close to return. He was shut down, and it's looking very likely that he will ultimately need surgery. That's going to be pending a review with a specialist. So these two teams that were thought to be duking it out for the division this year, ultimately have been the two best pitching teams in all of baseball. And yes, I hear you guys out there. The Rangers really struggle at the back end of that bullpen. Certainly, I'm sure they would love to add an elite level closer. But that bullpen has done very well. They've been overtaxed this past week due to 4 straight extra innings games. That's more on the offense not continuing to produce again for the Rangers this year. And that's kind of where they find themselves outside of the playoff picture looking in right now. Sean, welcome in. Ethan, welcome back. Ray as well. Sean, Cardinals shut out twice versus Pirates, and Jim Bowden said the Cubs will win the trade deadline. I absolutely agree with that because I think they're going to get the biggest name starting pitcher. They were said to be all in on the season, and I absolutely agree with that assessment. When you go after and make a trade for Kyle Tucker this offseason, the idea was then to push things to the middle to try to win the series this year. They're not just trying to win a wild card. They're not trying to win the division. They want to win the World Series, and their offense is certainly good enough to be able to get the job done, much to all of our surprise after we thought that they kind of added and subtracted from that lineup with the trade of Kyle Tucker, trading away Paredes, etc. in that deal. Ultimately, their offense has been great. The one thing that we haven't seen for them is their starting pitching really be able to get them very far. Justin Steele goes down. They're going to need some big-time starting pitchers, and so I agree with you there as far as Jim Bowden saying that the Cubs will be the quote-unquote winners of the trade deadline. Ethan, biggest acquisition the Rangers can get at the deadline is in a trade, of course. We talked about J.D. Martinez, the possibility of a non-guaranteed contract for him coming on board. I imagine he'd start in the minor leagues for like a week or two, get his legs back underneath him, and see what he's got at the major league level. Let's just kind of float this out there. They're using Billy McKinney, who's having a good year down in the minor leagues, but certainly not exactly the key cog in the lineup that you're looking for out of that DH spot. Jock Peterson has been anything but good this year for the Rangers, and they're looking for offense in any way that they can get it. Marcus Semien, certainly one of the hottest hitters in baseball, certainly in the American League over the past month. Corey Seager looks like he's on a heater. Looks like Baltimore actually threw at him in the game tonight anyway. Gregory Soto in the 8th inning. But as far as the Rangers go, some of their offensive weapons are starting to come around. But then you look at other key pieces of that lineup. Adolis Garcia, hot and cold. Jonah Heim, absent for 25 games out of the 30 in the month. You look at Higashioka, supposed to have been a great signing for them. Certainly handles the pitching staff well, but certainly has been a zero, and I mean a zero, offensively for them. They certainly were hoping for more than one home run through this many games into the season. You look at their center field. You got Evan Carter, who's been playing well, but he's been in and out of the lineup due to injury. Wyatt Langford, this was supposed to be the year where he challenges Corey Seager for the best player on the team. Even with Corey Seager's struggles, Wyatt Langford is still no Corey Seager. Langford was good in the first month of the season anyway, but really struggled, hitting underneath 200 for the past couple of months, and he hasn't been anywhere there. Josh Young as well has been probably one of the biggest struggles in the lineup as of late. Jake Berger's on the injured list right now. He hasn't been great either since they brought him over. A lot of holes in this Rangers team. But to answer your question there, biggest acquisition the Rangers can get at the deadline, I think they're going to get the biggest acquisition on the pitching side in the bullpen. I think for the offense, they're just going to continue to hope for the best from some of these key players. It seems like they have this, today, for instance, they took early batting practice. They practiced situational hitting. And what did they do? They go out there and score, all these runs against the Baltimore Orioles team, which they should be putting all these runs up against on a short notice starter for the Baltimore Orioles. They should have been putting up big numbers today. And that's what they did. Good on them. But here's the thing. They do this maybe 2 to 3 times a month, and then they do pretty much nothing the rest of the month. Every now and again, you get a couple of bats that start to heat up in the lineup, and then nothing else. I mean, you get a leadoff double, for instance, in today's game. Corey Seager a one-out double anyway, unable to advance the runner. They get another one-out double in the second inning from Jonah Heim, unable to advance the runner. Then they buckle down on the principles that they focused earlier that day in their situational hitting practice, and then they were able to grind out some runs. The long ball came into play. All those kinds of things started to work for them. The biggest example of this I could see was Adolis Garcia with kind of a measured swing for him. He usually goes all out on his swings, full effort. This one was he was keeping his eye on the ball all the way through. His swing path matched it. He wasn't trying to yank it out of the ballpark. He was just trying to drive it up the middle for a base hit, and that's exactly what he did, getting the first 2 runs of the game home. That's kind of what we need to see more from this Texas Rangers team. When you aren't going well offensively, situational hitting needs to come into play, and that's where I think they're going to hope for their offensive upgrades. Now, do I think they'll tinker around the edges? Absolutely, but I think they're going to try to go for an elite level closer at the back end of this bullpen to really solidify this pitching staff and make it the biggest strength they possibly can. Now that you're going to have to worry about DeGrom's innings as you go along the season, even though he looked great once again, had a couple of moments in there where you're like, oh, is he okay? But he was just fine. Eovaldi, you got to watch his innings as he's getting older and so forth. You're not getting Bradford back. He's going to be out for the year after his surgery was successfully completed today. John Gray could be an option for that bullpen late in games. After the All-Star break, same thing with Josh Spores as well. But as far as offensive upgrades, I would say small incremental upgrades around the edges. We're talking maybe a Taylor Ward type of a piece. A Ryan O'Hearn might be the biggest quote-unquote ad that they could make. I don't think they're doing anything to shake up this entire roster. The one thing I thought they could use before Devers was traded to the San Francisco Giants was an upgrade at third base, because Josh Young just looked so out of sorts at third base and still had some decent value on the trade market. I think if Boston had didn't have a good offer anyway on the table from the San Francisco Giants and held on to him until the trade deadline, I think the Rangers could have been one of the teams in there for his services. But that obviously has gone by the wayside. He will be the biggest offensive acquisition anybody makes at this deadline. I don't think anybody's going to do any better than Rafi Devers. All right, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments here. Will Severino get dealt? I doubt it because he signed to a longer-term deal. Yes, the Rangers starting pitcher, great. Bullpen, okay, but workload too high. Absolutely agree with you there. One thing I do want to mention before I forget my what I was planning before our video tonight anyway, is kind of how older pitchers are being used. The Rangers kind of have done this the last couple of years where they manage the number of pitches that these guys throw. And it's more about the stressful pitches, not necessarily a specific number. So, for instance, Jacob DeGrom, if he has an easy night going, maybe they let him go to, say, 95 pitches. If he's having to work hard, maybe the mid-70s. Average, they try to stay around 85. So they kind of have a little bit of wiggle room there. They're trying to preserve his innings for later in the season and into the postseason. I was looking at Max Scherzer, who has now made 3 starts for the Toronto Blue Jays and has been very good so far. You look at his ERA, a 4.85 ERA. Doesn't exactly say he's pitching well, but you look at his numbers, his first outing anyway, first outing of the year, 3 innings, 2 runs allowed. The second outing, 5 innings, 2 runs allowed. So, the last outing against the New York Yankees, I believe, 5 innings, only 1 run allowed. So these veteran pitchers certainly know how to get outs, and it's just got to worry about the number of innings, how many bullets they have left in that arm throughout the season. I think that teams are going to be more mindful of that and try to add some pitching here at the deadline. There will be no shortage of good arms available. The prices will be high, but I think hitters are going to be even more scarce at this deadline season. High offense just runs too hot and cold. Absolutely agree with you there, Mark. I heard JD rejected a contract from the Rangers, unaware if it was recently or during the offseason, but noteworthy. I guess he ain't signing right now. I hadn't heard that he necessarily rejected it. I heard that there were ongoing negotiations. That was coming from John Heyman. He reported it on Bleacher Report a couple of days ago that the Rangers had reached out recently to JD Martinez's camp. The conversations, as far as I have seen, are still ongoing. I think the Rangers are more trying to figure out how they would fit him in as far as into the lineup, not necessarily financially, because I think with a non-guaranteed contract, you're not necessarily worried about the finances of it. You make room and figure it out if it goes well. If not, then you cut him and you don't really have anything committed to the player. As far as positionally, where would he play? Obviously, DH. You have Jock Peterson probably coming back here after the All-Star break, so you'd maybe be looking at a 3-4 week window here where JD Martinez could take the primary duties over there at the DH spot. But they also have a nice run of having the flexibility of putting Josh Smith there, Sam Haggerty there, who gives them a speed element on the bases. JD Martinez obviously would not. His last year did not go well for the New York Mets, so I think there is some hesitation on the Rangers side as far as getting this deal done. But at this point, what do you have to lose? You're a team trying to be a contender this year. You have Bruce Bochy and Chris Young, two guys who do not say die ever, and they're going to try to compete no matter what they have to do in order to get there. Anthony, welcome back. Appreciate you joining us once again. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe if you have not already. That thumbs up goes a long way to helping our video out. And more people that chat here, the more active our chat gets, the more thumbs up we get, the more people we watch, the more fun our chat continues to be. So please feel free to hit that like and subscribe if you have not already. Anthony, with the last two sweeps and having a 7-game win streak, do you think my Marlins become buyers at the deadline, or are we still sellers? Sellers, unequivocally sellers, absolutely sellers. Can I say it again? Sellers. The plan for the Marlins was to bottom out this year. The plan last year was to bottom out last year. However, their plan got derailed because of injuries, poor performance. They're looking to move on from Alcantara at that point. That obviously got sidetracked due to the injury. This year, they're looking to do much of the same thing. Now, could the win streak bode well for their future? Absolutely. But I don't think this is any indication of them trying to compete in 2025. Now, say when you get to 2027, I could hear you, but remember, the Marlins are still looking for, in trade, guys below the age of 20 years old, position players that can help out this offense. They believe they have figured out, or cracked the code anyway, as far as developing pitching. And can't really argue with them. They do have a very good knack of developing some elite arms there recently. But the poor performance and injuries really crept up the last year or so. I would wonder if they kind of change their ask a little bit to include maybe a pitcher or two here or there, depending on what they get as far as offers this trade deadline season. But to answer your question, no, they're not going to be buyers. It's a nice developmental improvement for the Marlins. Good on them. You got some nice surprising players offensively, Stowers being the biggest of them in my mind. But to me, this is still a selling situation. That was their goal from the outset of the season. They aren't changing that now because of some fluky, 10-game run here by the Miami Marlins. Ethan, I'm being told LeBron to Dallas is close. Mavs are so deep they can trade 4 to 5 players and still be deep as crap. I haven't heard anything as far as that being close. There was some rumblings that LeBron could have interest in joining Dallas. The trade that I've kind of looked up at all kinds of different combinations of it. You'd have to include Gafford as the obvious piece in that deal. Martin would be another one. Hardy, just to kind of get rid of salary filler. Omax, because they need the roster space there. Then you're probably talking a combination of two of the three following: Klay Thompson, P.J. Washington, or Najee Marshall. You're not including 2 of those 3 players. That would gut too much of your depth. I do think Nico Harrison could be the GM that does this type of a move, but I think the only way he does it if it gets another cheap contract back in return. But I'm not buying anything as far as LeBron to Dallas. I did the numbers on it. It just doesn't make any sense. Even if I'm Nico Harrison, I think I still have a more contending team with my current roster than if I gut my rotation and bring in LeBron. But I still think there's a pathway to do so. But it would really have to be a trade that works in the Mavericks' favor. And when have we seen that happen in recent memory? The Mavericks have, for years, failed to get maximum value on trades. That's why they currently are sitting in a very difficult situation to try to offload the contract of Omax to try to free up some room for Dante Exum. And ultimately, they don't have enough second-round picks that are kind of the currency of the NBA to be able to get off of even a minimum contract like Omax. So kind of keep that in mind when you're thinking about trades and the Dallas Mavericks. In order for it to make sense for them, it'd have to be a real serious win in their favor, and it's just not going to happen. As far as the Mavericks might be making some other trades, including the Martin deal, the Hardy deal, the Omax deal, those kinds of contracts, I think there is a pathway to make a trade there, maybe even including Max Christie or Daniel Gafford, a contract that was signed in order to be traded, or at least have the availability to be traded as well. Rafe, Stowers get dealt, haven't seen if he's cooled off or not. But he's a little odd for the Marlins to build around him. I agree, but I don't think they're looking to move him. I think if they're bowled over, they'll do it, but I don't think they're necessarily looking to move him right now. I don't think anything's nailed down by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the Marlins are going to try to offload some of their guys closer to free agency first, and then go from there. Ethan, LeBron would say who the Mavs would trade in the deal. Well, I mean, he has got that no trade, I believe, or does he have that no trade? I can't remember if he does or doesn't, but either way, the only way that he gets moved from LA to the Dallas Mavericks, one, LA is going to want Gafford back and some financial flexibility. They're trying to preserve cap space for 2027 free agency. They let go of Dorian Finney-Smith, Luka Doncic's best friend on the team, and kind of said some bad things about him behind his back about how he was disruptive and had a degenerative knee condition and those kinds of things to try to lower his price in free agency. Obviously, that didn't work. He goes to Houston, and now that might have irked Luka Doncic, and now you're trying to free up cap space. So how good is your team going to be in the final year of LeBron and this upcoming season with Luka? Got to wonder about the long-term ability to retain Luka at that point. Anthony, if the Marlins end up dealing Stores, what team do you think would be willing to give up some good or decent prospects for him? Their DH maybe or Rangers? Honestly, there's not really a team that I would say Kyle Stowers would be a good fit on. I think there's a lot of teams that could use a player like him. I don't see him as a difference-making player. For instance, I don't see him on the level of, say, like a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or a, or a Rafael Devers even, or an Alex Bregman, or a Kyle Tucker. He's not that type of a player. So with that being said, he could fit on any number of teams. Could he help out and kind of solve lineup issues, depth issues? Absolutely. But he's not necessarily going to change the fortunes of a team because of whoever acquires him there. Maybe they'd be their DH for the Rangers. I don't think the Rangers want him at their DH anyway. I think they'd rather free up the flexibility to allow Josh Smith anyway and other pieces to kind of filter in and out of that DH spot, especially with Jock Peterson down. And remember, Peterson is already signed. He is their DH on the roster. He is signed for this year. Player option for next year. Guarantees picking up for next year as well. Oh, and I hope the Jays make October. Right now, they're in a good spot, 7-3 in their last 10. In fact, let's go ahead and pull up our standings real quick. Right now, the Blue Jays are 47-38. They're 7-3 in their last 10 on a 3-game win streak. Their run differential, though, does worry me. Their offense and their pitching is kind of right neck and neck there. I would like to see them, with Max Scherzer coming on board and being healthy now, that the runs allowed come down over the next month or so. And I'd like to see them try to add a bat here at the deadline. I think they could use another bat in that lineup. There's nobody that I would really point to and say that would be a difference maker. Like I said, there's not really many great bats available at this deadline that would be, fortune-changing type of offensive pieces being dealt at this deadline. I think the Rangers could have had one in Adolis Garcia if they wanted to move off of the contract of a Corey Seager or a Marcus Semien. That could have been an interesting conversation. That's never going to happen. I don't think it even would have happened even if they were in a selling mode. But I think Adolis could have been had if they were in sell mode at that point. Outside of that, there's nobody really that I see that's going to be selling a productive, difference-making, middle-of-the-order, bat to somebody's lineup. Pitching, that's a different story. I think there's going to be a plethora of bullpen, high-leverage guys that are going to be available and starting pitching as well. Both top-end aces and middle-type starters and back-of-the-rotation starters as well. Let's see here. Rafe. Come on. Mavs better not Mavs better not ever trade Christie. That's why I watched half of the Mavs games I did watch. But Rangers offense really just dipped out after the World Series win, huh? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. But as far as Christie goes, I think he just kind of overlaps a lot with the talent they already have on the roster. If Max Christie could get you a player like, say, Trey Murphy, that's the type of move I would do it for if I were the general manager of the Dallas Mavericks. Mark, what would Texas have to give up to get Junk and Bender from the Marlins? Not closer, but would make the bullpen deeper. I think you're probably talking maybe a borderline top 10 prospect and maybe another top 20 guy. I don't think either one of those guys, though, really fit the description of what I'm referring to as an elite-level closer. I'm talking about guys like Emmanuel Clase. I'm talking about guys like Edwin Diaz. Obviously, Diaz isn't going anywhere, but somebody in that class. A Kenley Jansen comes to mind from the Los Angeles Angels as kind of a bargain bin version of Emmanuel Clase at this point. But I think Clase could be one of the guys there. Helsley, obviously, could be another one. Bednar's pitched better after a tough first month of the season and a tough last year as well. But those would be some of the better arms I could see them going for to kind of solidify that closer spot for the Rangers. LeBron will be on the Lakers this upcoming season. I just don't see LeBron being on a different roster right now. I think it's too difficult to make a trade of that magnitude. Could I see the Warriors getting out there and doing it? Absolutely. but I don't think there's an appetite for that type of a move from the Lakers or LeBron at this point. Maybe they'll surprise us in the next couple of days with some roster maneuvers, but as of right now, I think they're going to stick with the rosters that they've got and figure out what they're going to get at center out there in LA. And if things still don't look great at that point, then maybe they decide to sell on LeBron and see if they can kind of position themselves a little bit better for the future. Let's see here. Anthony, what I'm saying is that the team has a deep lineup that would benefit from having him at DH because he's the weakest spot, because that's the weakest spot in the lineup. Yeah, I get your point there, but I mean, like, even with that being said, even with his even with his improvement at that spot in the lineup, he's not a difference-making player. There's not a not just Stowers, but just pretty much any player that I see at the deadline this year, even O'Hearn. That's not a player that I'm, in a World Series pitching around because he's up at bat with the bases loaded or with first base open or anything like that. He might be having a good year, but I'm not necessarily working around him because I fear what he might do, that kind of a thing. Now, if Yordan Alvarez, say the Astros were in a selling situation, as some people had prognosticated before the season, not me, but some people had, I thought he would be an interesting case if they were in a sell position. Obviously, they are not. Same thing with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That obviously did not happen either after they got the extension done. Rafe, biggest surprise, good and bad so far this season besides Rangers and Orioles for bad. I don't think the Rangers are necessarily in a bad. Remember, they're the best pitching staff so far in the majors. Orioles, key injuries in some really bad spots, Adley Rutschman, etc. They've really struggled at times offensively, which is not what they were expected to do. And pitching has just been abysmal for the Orioles. Other surprises would be how the Braves got out of the gate. Same thing with the Dodgers, but they've certainly solidified both of those rosters right now. Dodgers obviously back on top in the National League. Other surprises for me, kind of looking at it here, the Angels being 2 games out of the wild card are a little bit surprising. 42-42 with Ron Washington going, he's out for the season, interim manager there. A little bit surprised they're continuing to hold their spot in the standings right now. The Minnesota Twins continue to be as streaky as any team in the majors has ever been. They go on that incredibly long winning streak. They have a really bad losing streak before that. Another really bad losing skid after that. They're just the incredible streaky team this year. Maybe they go on another 15-game streak where they win 15 in a row, but I don't see that being the case. But that's kind of one of the more surprising stories of the season so far. Same thing with the Royals is how bad their offense has been. They've only scored 279 runs this year. That ain't good enough to get it done. In fact, it's worse than even the Chicago White Sox. That's how bad things have gone for Kansas City. Anthony, Michael, do you agree with some of these hockey fans saying that the NHL should investigate my Panthers for CBA violations because of what they did with Bennett, Marchand, and Ekblad? Bennett, no. Ekblad, no. Marchand, yes. There is such a thing as salary cap manipulation by having ridiculously long contracts extended to players' retirement years. Now, if it's seen as cap manipulation, they will void the deals. I don't think you have to worry about that with Ekblad or Bennett. But Marchand, the only reason why they made that deal, and same thing for the New Jersey Devils with Jake Allen, was to spread out that cap hit for a longer time. Now, the deal for Allen basically was for $9 million, and they decided, hey, instead of giving you, say, a 2 or 3 year deal worth a 4.5 or a $3 million average annual value, we'll spread it out over 5 years, and if we have to put you on LTIR towards the end of your career, so be it, because we don't expect you to play those years. That deal is far more likely to go through because it is a very reasonable contract number, and it's still within the normal playing years of an average player. Marchand, on the other end, is going to take this deal well past usual retirement ages for players. Now, does that necessarily mean anything? No. You're going to have to show other cause to terminate that contract, but I think that's the deal worth looking at out of those 3. Do I think anything will come of it? No. I don't think it should either. Do I think it is cap manipulation? Absolutely, but if it's within the rules, so be it, in my opinion. Mike, welcome in. Appreciate you joining us. If you guys are new here, be sure to hit that thumbs up at the bottom of the video and hit that subscribe button as well, as we'll be live again tomorrow night. We'll get into our MLB power rankings as well tomorrow. We'll get into our NHL and NBA segments here towards the end of the video as well after we go through a few other storylines from around Major League Baseball. Do you think the Cubs will try to get a third baseman as well as a starter or 2? I think they're going to try to add 2 starters if I'm Chicago. I think they're going to look for an ace, and I think they're going to look for probably number 3, 4 type starter that could take the ball in a postseason game. Do I think they're going to just take an innings eater? No. I think if they needed an innings eater, they'll just go with what they already have at the back end of that starting rotation. They want somebody who can take the ball in a postseason game and feel confident in them, holding down the fort. So, for instance, say they go after a Drew Rasmussen from the Tampa Bay Rays, or a Shane McClanahan, or a Sandy Alcantara. Those have been some of the more popular names out there. Or Chris Sale from the Atlanta Braves. Even though the Braves say not only is Sale not available, we're not selling, but again, it's still early. We'll see where things ultimately fall. But I do think the Cubs will certainly add probably 2 starting pitchers, both of which I expected to be at least in that postseason rotation. One certainly being an ace of for that staff. As far as a third baseman, I think they'll look for some depth, somebody who can be kind of a utility player. Think like Josh Smith for the Texas Rangers. I think they're looking for that type of a player that can fill in if some of the youth that they have, Shaw, etc., struggle as they go through a pennant chase, their first ever pennant chase. They want to have some productive at-bats, some veteran leadership as they go down the stretch of this season. And I think they will add that around the deadline. Ethan, biggest player moved at the MLB trade line, and to what team gets that player? Biggest offensive piece to me already moved. Rafi Devers to the Giants. In lieu of that, I think the most likely guy to move, Eugenio Suarez, he screams like a player that should be available at this deadline, considering where the Diamondbacks are. Let me show you where they're at right now. Diamondbacks currently are 3.5 games back. They're right at 500 right now. The run differential ain't great. Their pitching hasn't been great. Burns is down. Gallen has not been very good this year. Kelly has been up and down to some extent anyway. Their bullpen has had lots of issues back there as well, injuries to be considered there. I think Suarez is a great add for somebody like the New York Yankees who could really use some extra thump in that lineup. They seem to like that power hitter. I think he would be a great fit there, especially with the year that he's having. So that might be the best offensive piece left to move besides maybe a Ryan O'Hearn. O'Hearn, I think, would be a great fit for a team like Seattle. I think that'd be just the kind of bat that they really need to keep this offense going, like it has so far in the first half. As far as a pitcher, I would say probably Sandy Alcantara is the most obvious name out there. But I'm going to say that they hold on to him until after the deadline. And in the offseason, that's when they try to maximize his value at that point when they're, have all the teams in Major League Baseball competing for his services. I would say some of the more surprising names that you might see out there, a team like the Tampa Bay Rays, show you where they're at right now. Tampa Bay right now is in that second wild card spot, 2 games up on the final wild card there. They're not necessarily ever looking to buy or sell at the deadline. They're always looking to kind of rearrange the contracts that they have on their books. Rasmussen, for what it's worth, has been one of the top 10 starting pitchers in Major League Baseball, not just this year, not just last year, but basically for the last 3 years. That's how good Rasmussen has been when he is healthy, obviously. So that would be a great starting pitcher I think should be available at the deadline, and the Rays kind of continue their retooling as they always do. Other pitchers that I would look for, I'd look for any of the Arizona Diamondbacks expiring deals, Gallen included. I look for the Orioles to jettison pretty much any of their starting pitchers right now that aren't nailed down. I look for the Twins. If you're looking for some big-time starting pitching, Ober, Ryan, Lopez, you're not going to get anything out of some of those injured players, obviously. But I think, is it Ober that's the one that's healthy right now? That could be one of the better names that's on a longer-term deal that's available. On the National League side, the Nationals aren't trading anything. Everybody wants to have Paul Skeens, but nobody's going to have the assets to be able to trade him, and I don't think Pittsburgh would anyway, at least at this point. Wait a couple of years. That would be a time for him to be able to be moved. Chris Sale, if he ultimately makes it to the market, I think it'd be a great spot for somebody, or great starting pitcher for somebody to go after as well. But that would be another name to look out for, in my opinion. Trey Mancini did opt out, expected to sign with the Rangers. I did not see the Rangers part of that, but I did see that the Rangers had registered some interest in him earlier today, that they had kicked the tires on J.D. Martinez, obviously, but Trey Mancini would be able to play over there at first base, and some DH. Remember, Jake Berger coming back here probably around the Padres series by the end of the week. You have Jock Peterson due back around the All-Star break. Mancini could hold down the fort at that point, but he wants to be on the Major League's roster at this point. Let's see here. To answer your question, Ethan, just kind of wrap up our discussion on biggest players to be moved. We talked about rotation, starting pitchers. We talked about position players. As far as relievers, I would say Cleveland is going to possibly look to unload from a very big strength of theirs, which is the bullpen. I'd say Manuel Clase The writing is on the wall for him to get moved in kind of a Josh Hader type of a move, but we shall see. Anthony, if a team trades for Edward Cabrera, would he be more of a third, fourth, or fifth starter for a playoff team, or would they put him in the bullpen? I would say more of a fourth, fifth starter. I'd probably say more fourth more than anything else, but I don't think anybody views him as an ace, obviously. I don't think anybody views him as a bullpen guy, but I do think fourth starter would probably be the most likely spot for him. Ethan Walcott and a lot more might get Skeens, true, but the Rangers aren't necessarily looking to do that. Obviously, they would love to get their hands on any starting pitcher. Everybody would love to get their hands on Paul Skeens, but I think they'd rather hold on to Walcott. I think they need to improve their offense more than anything else. And if they're going to add at the deadline, it's going to be to tinker around the edges of this offense and to get them a high leverage reliever for that ninth inning. All right, to kind of run down some of the other news and notes from around Major League Baseball, we'll touch on the Astros first. Remember, Yordan Alvarez has been out for a significant period of time now, suffered a setback today. Dana Brown, the GM of the Astros, speaking with reporters, basically said they had not ruled out surgery as an option, and he was going to be seeing a specialist, and it was very likely that he's going to be missing significant time going forward. I would not expect him back until at least after the All-Star break at the very earliest. More bad news for the Astros is that Jeremy Pena, who's been playing better this season anyway, had a rib fracture after just changing agents to Scott Boras. Obviously, this isn't going to necessarily affect the contract negotiations there, but as far as the play on the field, this could open up an opening for Bryce Matthews, who's playing really well in the minor leagues. The question is, do they want to go ahead and start his major league clock now, well in advance of when they originally were planning to? But he is so young that and so productive that they might well go ahead and do it and just see what they can do and get his feet wet at the major league level. I think Matthews has a good chance to be the call-up coming for the Astros and going forward here. Rangers news anyway, we talked at the top anyway, the Rangers, the drama-filled team of baseball this year. Great starting pitching, great middle relief, and great bullpen help anyway, but no high-end closer, giving away some games. The offense just hadn't been able to hit their way out of a wet paper bag, even with a map, directions, a compass, being led by the hand, everything. They just cannot get out of their own way offensively. They need to solve those issues. But on the Rangers side of things, Corey Seager is starting to hit up finally. We've seen him miss different stretches of the season already. He seems to struggle for a bit when he comes back. This was probably the longest struggle. I'd say probably. It was definitely the longest struggle coming back at any point, let alone coming back from injury. But the longest period of struggle that Corey Seager has ever had in his career, he just is starting to come out of. Hit a couple of hard line drive doubles today. Had a home run the other night as well. Corey Seager's looking very much back for the Texas Rangers over the last few games. We'll see if that trend continues. Adolis Garcia seems to be doing a lot better since his mental break as well, but he's still susceptible to the inopportune strikeout. We see him going through the situational hitting practice today and playing a little bit better situationally today. We'll see if that carries over with the lineup itself. Tyler Mahle was transferred to the 60-day IL for Texas. He will not be back until after the All-Star break. There was some consideration for him being named to the All-Star team, but that has obviously gone by the wayside. But the Rangers, anyway, they were flirting with selling up until basically the last couple of weeks. I think that the Rangers put their foot in the ground, dug their heels in, are basically saying, we ain't going, we ain't selling. They see themselves as 3.5 games back of that wild card spot and say, hey, look, we've got the best starting pitching in baseball this year. Our bullpen middle relief has been very good, way overused, but been very good. We need a high leverage guy that can slam the door shut in the ninth inning, and we need our offense to perform a lot better. Bruce Bochy is our manager. Chris Young is our president of baseball ops. Very aggressive guys. The deadline, never say die type of guys. They will be trying to add at the deadline there. MLB.com updated their top 100 prospects anyway. If you guys want to take a quick gander at it, I already have it pulled up for you guys. Roman Anthony has taken over as number 1. Chase Burns, 2 from the Reds. Leo DeVries from the Padres, 3. And Sebastian Walcott that you mentioned there, Ethan anyway, is number 4. Bubba Chandler moves down a little bit to number 5 for the Pirates. Mayer, 6. McGonigal, 7. Made, a guy that I was really high on before he made the top 100. Was really having a breakout season last year. Really elevated his status, is now in there. Caglione has been a nice piece for the Royals in a very struggling offense there for Kansas City. And Andrew Painter rounds out your top 10. All right, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments, and then we'll get to the last bits of baseball news, and then head over to some of the NHL and NBA news as well. Let's see here. Can you do a trade for Edward Cabrera to the Mets? Yes, we can. What would the Texans have to give up for to get Mike Vassell? We can go ahead and pull that one up as well. And maybe Finnegan would be too nice Yeah, would be nice to would would be two nice ads. Yes. Okay. How about a Ryan Helsley to the Rangers and Cardinals? Not giving them up now. I don't think the Cardinals are necessarily looking to not sell off a couple of assets. Sure, they're in playoff positioning, but this year was all about figuring out which pieces were there for the long term. Helsley right now, final year of his deal. If they get an extension done, I don't think they trade him. If they do get an or if they don't get an extension done, I think they move on. But if they get that extension done, I think he'll stay there. Arenado is in that same kind of a boat there. I think they would love to find a suitor for him that would be willing to, you know, not make them eat as much of that cost there. But as of right now, they're in wild card positioning. They've certainly got to be a good thing for this team as they get through kind of the dog days of summer into August and September. If they're in a quote-unquote pennant race, it could be very good for the development of some of the younger players on that roster. Maybe they'll keep the vets around. We shall see. But we'll get into some trade. I will do some hypothetical trades here in just a moment. Hank, welcome back. No matter what they are, there's always an upside, Sports Network. Thank you, my friend. I'm trading Adolis and buying at the deadline if I'm Texas. I kind of thought about that as well. Adolis trading away would allow them to have the financial flexibility to add at the deadline. They want to stay underneath that tax threshold no matter what. So do not expect them to add anything of significant salary at the deadline unless there is salary going out. All right. Baseball trade values. Trade simulator. You said Edward Cabrera, so let's pull up the Marlins. To the Mets. We'll just do a couple of these, and then we're going to get on to the last bits of news that we needed to get into. Cabrera. His value is 3.5-year contract left, 17.2 to the Mets. Gives them a number 3-4 type starter, I think, for the Mets. Mets, though, I think need to look for a true ace in my mind. Their pitching is pitched better than expected, but I still think they need a number 1. You're not going to get any of these top guys here, obviously. Let's see. Miguel, McLean could be a get there. Remember, they're looking for younger players. Reimer could be one. Let's go ahead and say Baez is the first piece. Gets them 12, so then they drop down in this range here. Let's say they get Boston Barrow. Little Rich. Say they throw in Bender to kind of make this deal work out. Validate, post. I kind of like this deal. Mets get a bullpen arm. They get a starting pitcher that they can utilize wherever they want, really. And they're not giving up anything off of their major league roster. I think that would be a good get for the Mets. I just want to see what his numbers are for you, Mark. See how good he is. All right. 2.73 ERA. Couple of saves, couple of games started. Not a big strikeout guy. Numbers are good, though. What is his whip? 1.25. Game logs, what's he done recently? In the month of June, a 3.74 ERA. He's kind of a middle relief guy for me, so I think he just adds to the middle of the Rangers bullpen, which isn't a bad thing. But if the Rangers are going to add to that bullpen, they're going to look for, like Emmanuel Clase level pieces. So let's kind of do that one. We've done the Ryan Helsley one this offseason. We'll go ahead and do that one first, I guess. Let's do Helsley first. Rangers and Cardinals. There we go. Trade him to the Rangers. Value for Helsley is only a 3.3, so it's not going to be a big haul that they're going to get back. Remember, you're only getting him for the remainder of the season. The Rangers do need an upgrade at third base in my mind. And remember, they're not going to eat money without having to, or without some money going back the other direction here. So, if they were to do this move, let's go over to the Rangers. I want to look at their third baseman because I'm going to look at Josh Young first. 14.1. I think that value is very high right now compared to what his actual value is after the struggles he's had this season. But he would be the piece that I would trade over. Now, money-wise, I'd love to get off of the contract of Jock Peterson. That ain't happening, obviously. So if you're looking to offload some salary, major league roster players with half a season left, Molly, John Gray, those would be the guys that are making some money here. I don't think they're trading away Molly if they don't have to. Adolis, I don't think they would move here either. There is some thought to Higashioka could be the guy. I think the Rangers would love to get out of Higashioka's contract if they could right now. So say you trade Higashioka. I'm not even sure what the Cardinals' catching rotation looks like right now. Pozo, Herrera, Pajes. Honestly, I think that the inclusion of Higashioka in this deal would be literally just the salary ballast for Arenado. Now, obviously, you'd want something else back of value. So I think if the Cardinals included, say, I don't know, $10 million going to the Rangers, just to make sure that the Rangers stay underneath the tax, something like that. Actually, I think it would take a little bit more, given Helsley's deal. Say they included $20 million. All of it was this season. Just so that the Cardinals don't have any future obligations financially. I think that could be an interesting deal. It would currently be rejected by the model. Just doesn't make sense with Arenado's negative in there. Take out the contract. Simplify the deal down to just for Helsley. You go back down to the $3 million category. Spores, Bratz, probably Scarborough would be the piece here. Bratt could be the piece. They've had interested in Bratt for years. Santos could be the most likely out of those guys, though. So let's say Santos is the get. 1 for 1. Trying to remember what his contract was. $4.1. So that should be available for the Rangers to be able to take if they get to the deadline and it's down to, say, $3 million. They should be able to afford it. That wouldn't be too far off of what the deal could be. So we'll validate and post it real quick. And then the last one we're going to do for Texas, like I said, I wanted to look at what Emmanuel Clase would cost if I'm the Rangers, and I'm really looking to buy at this year's deadline. So I'm the Rangers. Let's look at the Majors roster first. Clase's only got 22 value. That's gettable. Rangers could easily make that value. The Rangers would love to get their hands on Jose Ramirez, who would solve their issues at third base. But they would have to give up a pretty penny in order to get it done. Let's just see what it would cost. Now, if you're willing to include Sebastian Walcott, I think they would easily begin the conversations there. But I don't think they would. With that being said, the Rangers don't really have a lot of top-end talent, at least right now before the draft here, that they could easily fit in this trade to equal that much value, including Jose Ramirez. So it's not going to make sense. So you take out Jose Ramirez. Dryling's having a nice year. Let's say they trade Osuna, because I think the Guardians would love a major league ready player like Osuna coming back. So that's 7. Where else are you going to get some value here? I don't think they'd be willing to trade Castillo here. Drake and Davila are both having really good years. I think their value is actually higher than what they have listed. Rosario's an injured starting pitcher, but I think he'd be along the lines of what they usually go for. So say you put Rosario in the deal, assuming the medicals are still clean, even though he is injured. Gets you right up to that price there. And then what was Kwan's value? 61. That's a lot of value on Kwan. Who's got negative value? Stefan, Santana, Seawald. I like Junis though. Lively, McKenzie. A lot of former Rangers in the middle here. Allard, Festa. Tucker Barnhart, by the way, is retiring from baseball. That news coming today as well. I don't think anybody else really fits the description of what would be a good fit for the Rangers right now. So, what kind of money is Clase making? Is the next next 28.3 is his expectation, so he's making what, 5-6 mil this year? Basically nothing. So maybe a little bit of an overpay by the Rangers. So take out Rosario. Actually, you know what? I do think that's a fairly reasonable trade because I think Rosario's value is more around the 18 range with the injury. Let's just say for, kicks and giggles, they kick in, I don't know, $3 million from the Guardians, not the Rangers. Excuse me. There you go. Validate, post. And there you go. Rangers get their quote-unquote elite closer in Emmanuel Clase. All right, you said you're trading Adolis. That would be one way to save some salary. Absolutely, Mark. I'm just trying to get Texas more quality depth in the bullpen so they don't crack. I think they have plenty of depth. I think they have other arms that haven't even been used that have been at the major league level before. Barlow, among others that are at the minor level. Church, I think he's injured at the moment anyway, but they've got arms that are in middle relief categories. Cole Winn, kind of those middle relief guys. They got plenty of those. What they don't have is that established, A-plus level closer. Duran from the Twins is another one that kind of fits that same description. So as far as cracking in the bullpen, I think from them just being overused is their issue right now. And I think that if they continue to be overused, they have the depth that they can draw on if they have injuries, poor performance, etc. I think there's a possibility you could see Jacob Webb be one of the guys that's out of that bullpen for one of the other guys that I mentioned a few minutes ago, but we shall see. Let's see here. Brendan, welcome back. Appreciate you joining us once again. Been a while since I've seen you. Blue Jays about to sweep the Yanks. Well, I mean, the Blue Jays are 7-3 in their last 10. They are playing good baseball right now. Scherzer's back. And we'll see if this pitching staff can start putting some zeros up on the board, because the Blue Jays need this to keep that run scoring down for the opposition and keep that offense going on the other side. Luis Robert ain't helping his stock lately. He hasn't been helping his stock for years. So honestly, I just see a trade for him being very difficult to make, because they're going to want something of value in return. And if they're eating a majority of that contract, they're going to want at least something of decent value back. I just don't think he has garnered that type of package, at least to this point. Brandon also Atkins said they're looking for a starting pitcher and right-handed hitter. What kind of targets, trades are out there for the Jays at those types of pieces? Starting pitchers, there's tons of starting pitchers this year. Just kind of run through some of the starting pitchers that we could see available. The Orioles are going to have like 3 to 5 starting pitchers that are available at this year's deadline. Twins are probably going to have a couple. Rangers, if they were to sell, would have a couple, but they're not going to sell. On the National League side of things, we could see the Cardinals move on from a starter or two if they decide to sell at the deadline some of the more veteran pieces. Diamondbacks have some really good names that are available, but the question is, are they willing to part with them because of their free agency or pending free agency status? Braves, Chris Sale. You got the Nationals. They have a couple of depth arms, nobody that really moves the needle for me. Peralta for the Brewers is always a name to kind of keep an eye on, kind of a Josh Hader type of a trade there, kind of a nobody is expecting it, see if they can maximize value before he hits the final year of his contract anyway. Padres are always looking to jettison some dollars right now, so maybe they get an extension done with one of their guys. If they don't, I could see them moving on from one of those guys and seeing if they can extend the others that are left. But as far as a right-handed hitter, there's nobody that's really going to move the needle for me. So I think it's more of a bench bat, somebody who can kind of be a flexible utility type of a player, but nobody's really going to move the needle for you in Toronto. Locksmore, what is the Seattle MVP from Cal? Or what's the with Seattle MVP from Cal Raleigh and that pitching staff yet barely a 500 team? Well, I mean, it's kind of the streakiness that I mentioned with the Twins. They're just as streaky at times. But not nearly to the Twins' level, obviously. Cal Raleigh is really carrying this team. We always see Julio Rodriguez go on a tear for about 2 months, and then outside of that, he's not exactly a great player. A league average player would be the best way to put him in the other 4 months of the season. But Cal Raleigh's been great this year, kind of getting the Barry Bonds treatment as of late, and is really carrying that team offensively, especially as of late. The first couple of months of the season, they're playing a lot better, as a team offensively. The last month and change hasn't gone quite as well as the first month or two of the season. So we'll see how this rest of the year goes for them offensively. But I do think they'll try to address offense and try to solidify that staff with maybe some more depth there. I think they have plenty of depth already in the minors, but I think they'll try to get a veteran in there, just kind of keep the young guys a little bit more calm as they try to chase down a pennant this year. But we shall see. Brendan, knowing the Jays, they will want at least one more year of control past this year. Possibly. I mean, they now got Vlad Guerrero Jr. signed up long term. They don't necessarily have to worry about him leaving in free agency and then not being able to attract any free agents. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that's going to be the biggest priority for them. I think that'll give them the flexibility to add more pieces. I think part of the reason why they've really struggled to bring in other outside talent in Toronto is because of the uncertainty around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You don't have that contract done. You're unable to sign free agents. I think that's part of the reason why they struggled the last couple of years luring that big time free agent there. Sure, you have to worry about tax. You have to worry about living in Canada, all that kind of thing. But the bigger issue there is what's the team going to look like? Am I going to be traded away? Am I going to be in a good situation or am I going to be in a bad situation? And of course, money talks. But it is a factor when it comes to Toronto. You're changing a lot, and you better be getting everything you can in order if you're going to make that type of a change. That's a front office priority. They never trade for a pure rental. Yet, I'm thinking back to the Jose Barrios trade from years ago with the Minnesota Twins. He was thought to be, the next great ace for the Toronto Blue Jays at the time. They traded away a couple of former first-round picks in order to get the deal done. Obviously, the trade didn't work out quite as well as they'd hoped, but Barrios has been a nice player for them for a few years now. As far as the reason why I bring up that trade anyway, it just reminds me a lot of the way this front office views it. They try to capitalize on opportunity, I think is the best way to put it, as all GMs do. But they really try to go after guys like in that situation where the contract might have been too much for the Twins to go after, so they'd be willing to take on the contract, because they see a player who's under term that they can try to lock up even further long term. So kind of think back to, like, say if Luis Ariz had come onto the market with, say, 3 to 4 years left to control, that would have been the type of player that they would have targeted. In this year's climate, I think that would lead you to players like Kyle Stowers from the Miami Marlins if you're looking for offense. But again, like I said, these offensive pieces that are available aren't exactly moving the needle. On the pitching side of things, if they wanted to add a reliever, I think there's plenty of guys that fit that description. Clase that we just did to Texas kind of fits that description. As far as a pure rental, I think the preference would always be to get somebody with some term left that's on a cost-controlled contract, not necessarily a bloated deal. But if you can get somebody around, say, 2-3 million bucks, you know, as a controllable asset going forward, you'd love to do that. Rentals, by their own nature, don't have any value to you after the season. So if things go great, you sign them to an extension or sign them in the offseason, kind of go from there. If things don't, you cut bait and just say, hey, we just sunk the assets we did in the trade to bring them in, and we go from there. But front offices always like to prioritize guys with control, especially pitchers with control, and that's always going to be their preference. Might not be the best availability this year because nobody really is going to be making that big of a difference offensively. So in that case, I might be going for a lower price option as far as a rental in that case. Other options on the pitching side, like you mentioned there, Brennan, Mitch Keller could be a interesting one. O'Neal Cruz, I've heard some rumors about him. I see this as a lot of the Ronald Acuna thing for me, kind of the loafing to first base, getting pulled from a game due to effort and hustle. Fairly recently anyway, kind of running over the top of a ground ball single into center field, allowing a guy to score from home. Those types of things that really Major League baseball players are better than. I think that could be an interesting name available, but I don't think he's necessarily going to be available. O'Neal Cruz, I think, will be a member of the Pittsburgh Pirates for a significant period of time. Bobby Wood has 30 doubles already. Bobby Wood's a great player, but that offense is lacking some run support, I guess is the best way to put it. Jace Caglione, their top prospect anyway, has kind of come up and done a little bit for them, but they need the lineup from top to bottom to do a lot better there in Kansas City. All right, appreciate you guys joining us. If you guys would mind hitting that like button, hitting that thumbs up, really goes a long way to helping out this video. Got about 15 of you guys with us right now, so if you guys wouldn't mind doing that, follow us on X at UpsideSN if you want to be notified when we do go live. We will post it there, or on X at UpsideSN as well. All right, today was the start of NHL free agency. Most of the guys had already signed. We just had the trade of Mitch Marner anyway, sign and trade deal to the Vegas Golden Knights. That got Nick Roy to the Toronto Maple Leafs anyway. Maple Leafs had kind of some financial situation that they had to really work on. Mitch Marner goes to partner with Jack Eichel out there in Vegas. They should be a good tandem there. But like I said, not a lot of movement anyway on the free agent front. Some of the best moves we saw were Vancouver Canucks keeping Brock Besser, Connor Garland anyway. The Anaheim Ducks going out there and getting Mikael Granlund from the Dallas Stars, going way above what the Stars were going to be able to afford, giving him 3 years, $21 million total. Stars were never going to get that high. Same thing with Cody Ceci. Both players circled back to the Stars today to try to get them to give them that deal, and were unable to do so. Stars are over the cap right now as it is. They have until October to get underneath it, and I think they will. They have a couple of deals that they could easily jettison for a late-round pick, or even just buy out if necessary. Some of the other news from around the NHL, the Stars hired a new head coach, Glenn Gulletson, new assistant coach, Neil Graham, from their Texas Stars as well. Both long histories with the Dallas Stars organization. We'll see if they can get this team over the hump and win a Stanley Cup final as well. The Rangers did add a marquee left shot defenseman, Gavrikov, and were able to trade away in a sign and trade Keandre Miller to the Carolina Hurricanes for a prospect, a first-round pick, the better of the Carolina Hurricanes pick or the Dallas Stars pick. It's also top 10 protected and a second-round pick as well. Great return in that deal for Keandre Miller. The LA Kings were also very active, adding Corey Perry and several other significant pieces, including Cody Ceci as well. So those are some of your big headlines from around the NHL. And then Bob McKenzie, the best reporter I've ever seen covering the NHL, called it quits today. He was kind of on modified retirement the last couple of years, and then today he finally bid us all farewell. And congrats on a great career, Bob McKenzie. You were one of the best reporters I've ever seen do it for hockey. One of the reasons I really got back into hockey recently was because of his reporting, getting me into the transaction side of the game a lot more than I ever had been. And really appreciate his analysis. That really got me into it. And fun guy, and hope he enjoys his retirement. Bob Margarita, as they called him, with his podcast that he had years ago. Really enjoyed the coverage that he did in those. A lot of fun. Kind of reminds me a lot of Elliot Friedman that's around nowadays. Kind of has that same kind of mentality. And the young guys that are around now are all because of you. The hockey, insiders anyway, would not even exist without Bob McKenzie. So hats off on a great career. I think it was 48 years overall, and hats off to Bob McKenzie. The NBA, we had a couple of great headlines there. Damian Lillard anyway, was waived by the Milwaukee Bucks. I do not think this was the original plan for them going into the offseason. I think they were looking for an opportunity to do it, don't get me wrong. But until they had a player to use that money on, they were not going to go ahead and let Damian Lillard leave for nothing. So they're going to go ahead and stretch and waive his contract. He is going to be a free agent. I think he's already starting to talk to teams already anyway. I'm not sure if that's already been finalized as far as the stretch and waive, but that's what's happening with him. The reason why they did it is because they were able to convince Miles Turner, yes, that Miles Turner from the NBA final team, the Indiana Pacers, they were able to lure him away to play with Giannis in Milwaukee. Giannis is said to not be happy at all about the decision to move on from Damian Lillard, even though he was going to miss the entirety of the season. We'll have to see what this team looks like going into the year, because right now they don't have a point guard. They had to trade away their backup point guard in order to make the contracts work. So they're one team that's going to have to add somebody on a low-cost deal here to kind of give them some point guard help. But we shall see which direction they go. For Indianapolis, the reason why they lost Miles Turner and the reason why he even took the Milwaukee Bucks deal is because they lowballed him so far that they thought, hey, nobody has salary space out there that's going to offer him a deal, so we'll offer him a very small contract, 3 for 60, 3 for 80, and just see if he takes it. Instead, he gets 4 for 104, I believe, from the Milwaukee Bucks, so good on him for getting that deal. Dallas area native does well and ultimately ends up in Milwaukee. But Damian Lillard is on the market. The Golden State Warriors, the Miami Heat, Dallas Mavericks, LA Lakers, pretty much any team that needs a point guard is already reaching out to him for his services. Remember, he's going to be out for the season, so do not expect him to play this year. If he does, might be at the very end of the year. I doubt it, but always a possibility to recover a little bit quicker. But he is a little bit older now. I would count on him more for 26-27 rather than 25-26. But either way, a great player once again hits the market. We'll have to see what happens there. Jaren Jackson Jr., who just signed that big contract extension yesterday with the Memphis Grizzlies. I believe it was a 4 or 5 year deal, $220-something million. He got turf toe today while playing in an exhibition basketball game today. So incredible to see that. More bad luck for the Memphis Grizzlies on the injury front. Besieged by injuries the last couple of years anyway. We'll see how they ultimately get Jaren Jackson Jr. back on the court and if he's ready to start the season or not. LeBron opted into his contract. He'll be staying with the Lakers. There have some discussion, as you might have seen earlier in our video. LeBron had some rumblings out there that he might be looking for a fit with the Dallas Mavericks. Highly unlikely, but not necessarily out of the realm of possibility. Golden State remains the most likely destination if he does get moved. The Dallas Mavericks are expected to announce a contract extension with Jason Kidd in the next couple of weeks. Expect that deal to happen after they solidify the rest of this roster. Still trying to lock up their last few roster spots right now from what we hear. The New York Knicks have finally decided on a head coach and are close to agreement with Mike Brown to be their new head coach. Kind of surprising to see them go from a hard-nosed, defensive-minded guy in Thibodeau to another hard-nosed, defensive-minded guy in Mike Brown. Tell me you don't have a type. Now, of course, they tried to go after Jason Kidd. That didn't happen, along with several other under-contract head coaches, but they finally had to settle with another coach out there. I think Mike Brown is a very good coach. I'm just surprised that they went in his direction. I thought they would have changed things up a little bit as far as the messaging, and to me, this is just more of the same. I would have rather just kept Tom Thibodeau and go from there, but unfortunately, they chose to let him go, and now they're just going to have to be stuck with whatever situation they're left with in that coaching spot. Let's see here. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander agreed to the biggest extension in basketball history. $71 million is the average value of that deal. Biggest contract by far. Tatum is right on the heels of that one as far as NBA contracts go. Of course, he just beat out the deal for Shohei Ohtani, who got $70 million per year from the Los Angeles Dodgers. So some big-time money out there already. All right, let's try to catch up on a few of these comments here. Brennan, Leafs still looking to add a top 6 winger. They have one slot left. Basically, they filled their bottom 6 pieces already today. Well, if you just missed it, Edmonton just added Mangiapane to their top 6, borderline top 6. So you think he's probably a middle 6 player rather than a top 6 player for me. But the Leafs don't have a lot of money to work with. I thought Granlund could have been an interesting piece, but I think they could go out to a team like Nashville and see if they can pry away like a Marchessault, a player like that to kind of fill that role there. Dallas, by the way, is still looking for a top 6 winger as well, and they are over the cap. We'll see if they trade one of their top players in order to free up some cap space. They're still connected to Rasmus Andersson from Calgary as well. If you guys paid attention to our live that we did on, I think it was Sunday. I can't remember when we did our live. I think it was Sunday. We did a live where we kind of traded away Jason Robertson. I think that's unlikely to almost a 0% chance now. I think the most likely scenario for Dallas that I've heard zero people talk about, not one person talk about, is how high prices for centers are right now. Nobody good is on the market. Nobody good is on the trade market. Dallas has a plethora of centers, and their third-line center, Wyatt Johnson, is on an $8.4 million contract. He could be moved to the wing. They could move Duchesne down to the number 3 center spot, especially after he agreed to a 4-year deal. He's 34 years old, going to be 38 by the end of the deal, only $4.5 million per. But if you trade away Wyatt Johnson, you bring in Rasmus Andersson, get your draft capital back that you just traded away for traded away for Rantanen, then you have some money to go out there and add a top 6 winger, and there you go. You get your right shot D, you solve your cap issues, and you can still move on from Dumba and Lyubushkin to give you even more options. A lot of opportunities for Dallas to solve their issues. Lock Smart, Indiana Pacers, LOL, they didn't want to pay the luxury tax. Well, true, but they also didn't necessarily give the contract that they gave to Miles Turner, say, a couple of years ago. Remember, they gave a raise to Miles Turner when they didn't have to. He took a below-market deal to go back to Indiana the time before his extension, when he hit free agency the last time, when Dallas was trying to recruit him, the Clippers were trying to recruit him, and a couple of other teams. He ended up taking a discount to stay with Indiana. They said, "Thank you so much for staying. We'll go ahead and give you this, extension. We'll pile on an extra $15 million this year and extend your contract by 2 years, giving you $20 million each of those 2 years." Ultimately, he thought, hey, things are going great here in Indiana. They'll lock me up again. They'll do right by me. They're not going to lowball me. Instead, what he got was more of the same. Hey, he took a discount last time. Maybe he'll take it this time. And ultimately, it did not work out. Without that, Turner still pays it. True. I do think that the luxury tax did have some implications on it, but I think that he's such a big piece for what they do. He's really the only player that completes what they need on that defensive end. He's not a great defender, but he does give them some size. He does stretch the floor as a big. They still have Toppin. They still have some other pieces that they could utilize at that spot anyway. But for me, Turner was by far their best piece at that 5, and they're not going to be able to fill his shoes this offseason. They're going to have to hope that they get somebody in the draft next year, or that say a Gafford becomes available for them to get players like that. But we shall see. Let's see here. Indiana attacks in 20 years. If any time is now the time to do it. True. Shams literally said Indiana officials told him if Halliburton did get hurt, the front office was going into the luxury, but because they got hurt, they aren't going to. Smart. I guess that's the kind of the smart way to do it. If you don't think you have a chance to win, why pay when you don't have to? But here's the thing. Halliburton's going to get healthy. Not necessarily this year, but he could be healthy the next year, obviously. And you want to continue to have a very good team. Turner is still young enough to where he should be a good player after 1 year. So we shall see. Let's see here. Locksmart. Oh, well, Detroit going to whoop them Pacers now. Detroit is looking pretty good. I think Detroit's going to be a top 6 team next year. I think there's a good chance that they get into the second round of the playoffs next year as well. Denver's had a really good offseason as well, bringing in Valanciunas, a couple other depth pieces. They didn't really have a bench last year. They certainly have a bench this year. Tim Hardaway Jr. going to Denver as well, giving them some good shooting off of the bench there. Remember, they traded Michael Porter Jr., giving them some flexibility financially to stay beneath that second apron. Cam Johnson, I think, is a good player for them. Kind of gives them some flexibility. Kind of an Aaron Gordon replacement in a few years. I think he's that type of a player. And I think they did a good job by only having to jettison one unprotected first-round pick in order to get off of the money owed to Michael Porter Jr. That allowed them to make the moves that we saw today with Tim Hardaway Jr. and with Jonas Valanciunas and others as well. Let's see here. $71 million a year is crazy? Yes, it is. Brandon Lee, according to Rasmus, only signed an extension with Vegas. Well, I don't think he's going to go to Vegas because I don't think they have the money for him. I think they try to get every single player they can. I'm sure they would love to do it. But I think that the rumors have been pretty persistent for over a year now, connecting him to Dallas. So we'll see if he ultimately ends up in a Stars uniform. Dallas really needs a right shot D. They've needed one for about 5, 6 years now. They need a puck moving guy. To me, Rasmus Anderson is not a top 10 right shot D, but he's in that top 20, top 25 range, which still gives you a number one right shot D man on your team. I think for Dallas, you probably still leave Heiskanen on the right side as your number one. Then you put Rasmus Anderson as your number two on your right side. He's got 4.5 million this year. He's going to need an extension after the year. With the cap going up as much as it is next year, you could still afford all the players that they already have on their roster, including Rasmus Anderson. If they gave him an $8.5 million salary next year, if they gave Thomas Harley a $10.5 million salary next year, if they gave Robertson a $12 million salary, they could do every single one of those contracts next year and not have to worry about losing another player. Obviously, they still have to solve their cap situation this year with Dumba and Lyubushkin. If they jettison those players right now, bring in Anderson, they'd already have enough space to be able to build their roster as currently set right now. They'd still need a top six winger in my mind, but maybe they're viewing Johnson as that winger to go to the outside. They brought in Faxa. Maybe they move Steele to that third line center role and just let him play with Ben and Bork on that line. And then the fourth line is Blackwell, Faxa, and Bach, or whoever you bring up from the minors. But that's how I build my roster if I'm Dallas, if I'm trying to hold on to the pieces that I have. You might have to include a second or a first-round pick, or I'd say probably a second-round pick for Anderson, and a really decent prospect, not necessarily a top-end prospect. If you give up, say, Hemming and, say, a fourth-round pick, that might get it done, or, say, a second-round pick and Strangis, I think could be a deal that gets it done as well. But expect a deal of Rasmus Anderson before the end of the offseason in the NHL. All right, appreciate you guys joining us tonight. If you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe, keep you guys updated as we get closer and closer to MLB's trade deadline. Today, NHL free agency began, NBA free agency began the night before, and still unable to sign those deals yet. Once that moratorium is over, we should see a flurry of activity that becomes official here in the next couple of days. Happy Canada Day for those of you north of the border. Congratulations on your celebration today. And Independence is this weekend as well for those of us in the US of A. So hats off to all of you veterans out there that help keep us safe in both countries. No matter what trade wars may be going on, we understand that you're still an ally north of the border. You guys understand that the United States is still an ally to you guys, that we're still fairly friendly no matter what trade wars may or may not be going on. But we live very similar lives. We're very appreciative of one another. Our trade, our lifeblood of one country is also the lifeblood of the other. And it's just a matter of figuring out those issues. Those will get solved. We will get past all of this, and we'll be harmonious once again. But congratulations to those of you north of the border on your Canada Day and Independence Day in the U.S. Y'all stay safe out there. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night with our MLB Power Rankings. We'll update those. We'll also update any transactions that might have occurred around the NHL, NBA. The NFL had a crazy trade as well. I'll mention that before we log off anyway. Minka Fitzpatrick and a late-round pick end up going to Miami in exchange for Jalen Ramsey and Jonnu Smith as well. We also saw a trade that sent Darren Waller to the Miami Dolphins as he comes out of retirement and gives up his music career temporarily to kind of go and restart his NFL career. Two kind of crazy moves that we've seen in the NFL over the last 48 hours. But that's something we'll kind of get into a little bit more as we get closer to training camps in the next month or so. All right, you also have a great night. Stay safe out there, everybody. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night for our MLB Power Ranking show tomorrow.